If fear of being judged is the thing that's stopping you from launching your comic on Kickstarter, I'm going to give you the cure to that in this short video. Welcome, everyone. I'm Tyler James. I'm the host of the Comics Launch podcast. I'm the publisher of Comics Tribe. We do a lot of focusing on this channel on Kickstarter and building audiences and launching awesome projects to them and just taking your creative careers to the next level. And so this is for you if you're someone who fears being judged by others, and that fear is stopping you from doing something, whether that something be launching a project on Kickstarter, or maybe it's stopping you from doing other things. Maybe it's stopping you from getting started with your comic in the first place. Maybe it's stopping you from reaching out to an artist that would be perfect for your project. Maybe it's stopping you from reaching out to podcasts and trying to get noticed. Maybe it's stopping you from pitching to editors, etc. If that fear of being judged is the thing that's stopping you, I want to talk about that. And some of you might be like, well, Tyler, I'm not afraid of being judged, but you have other fears. And you have a fear that I'm afraid that my work isn't good enough, or I'm afraid that my project isn't big enough, or I'm afraid that my price that I'm going to have to charge is too high. Like those are all fears as well. And maybe your fears are a little bit different. Maybe you feel stupid about showing your face on camera, so that's why you're not doing a Kickstarter video. Or maybe you hate the sound of your own voice, and so you're just putting off promoting your stuff. Or maybe you're not launching your Kickstarter because you're afraid, well, what if I only raise $100? Or what if I only get 15 backers? Or what if I only raise, less than my goal, etc. All of those things aren't actually the real fears. Those are just symptoms of the bigger fear, which is a fear that you're going to be judged. And those are all examples of fears of judgment. So I'm going to give you the cure to that in a second. But before I do that, I did want to mention, if you are someone that is, maybe you're afraid of being judged, maybe you're not, but you're planning on launching a comic on Kickstarter soon, I want to encourage you to go download a resource that I put together for creators like you. It's called the Successful Comic Book Kickstarter Roadmap. You can get it over at comicslaunch.com/roadmap. And it's going to basically lay out the steps to go from idea to launch, to planning, to launching, to funding, to fulfilling your Kickstarter. And it's a nice overview or guide of the process, especially if this is your first launch, or if you're someone that's launched, but maybe you're looking to level things up. So I hope you'll grab that free guide at comicslaunch.com/roadmap. Now, one thing that I want to just mention here is that there is a cure for the fear of judgment, but the cure to that fear of judgment is not that you have to be perfect, right? It's not that you have to be the best. It's not that you have to be successful. Like all of those things, it will not cure the fear of judgment. And a great example of this is I've been watching The Last Dance, which is the documentary on Michael Jordan and the Bulls dynasty. And one of the things that was really evident there is you've got here Michael Jordan, right? The best that ever was, And yet he was actually driven from the game in a large part because of criticism and judgment and the media pounding and pressing and the way it was treated. And it got too much for him, and he had to walk away from the game for a couple of years. And so here's the best person that's ever did that thing, and yet he was still judged by the media, by fans, by the basketball world, by the entire world, right? He was still judged, right? And so there's no way to avoid being judged. If the best person to ever do something like Michael Jordan was judged, the truth is we're all going to be judged, right? There's nothing we can do to avoid being judged, right? There are people watching this video, or will watch this on the replay, or I popped up in somebody's feed, and people are judging me right now, man. Dude, that dude needs a haircut, right? Clean up your clean up your room. That table's a mess. Like, oh, this is the best background he can get. You know what? Why don't you have a fancy background? Like all this stuff. Like, look at that T-shirt. You look sweaty. Go take a shower. Like, I'm sure all of these judgments are going to happen. And when I launch Kickstarters, I've got a Kickstarter on right now, and there are people that are probably going up and down my page and judging, right? And you'll have this, and people will judge your books, and it'll be, you know, some people will judge it as the best thing ever. Some people will judge it as, wow, no interest, what not. And so there's nothing we can do to avoid being judged. If we're going to be in this game, if we're going to be creators, hey, if we're going to put stuff out in the world, we're going to be judged. But we can cure the fear of that judgment, and that is actually entirely in our control. And the way you do that is pretty darn simple. The way you stop being controlled and being harmed by the fear of judgment is to simply stop judging other creators. If you're afraid that people are going to judge your Kickstarter campaign, your task, the thing that is entirely 100% under your control, is to stop going and judging other creators for their Kickstarter launches. Because I'll tell you, it is the creators who spend all day passing judgment on other creators that are actually crippled by the fear of judging others, right? They are the ones that are most concerned about being judged themselves, right? Because they're judging other people. I mean, this is not a new idea. It's biblical, right? Like, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. All right. And so the judgment, the constant judgment of other people's stuff and other people's work and other people's value, it's not a one-way street. Because if you are looking at something and you're telling yourself, scrolling Kickstarter, and oh, that comic looks like crap, somewhere in the back of your head, there's a ricochet, there's a reverb that's thinking to yourself, oh man, what if people think my stuff is crap? And the result of that second thought is, maybe I shouldn't put it out there in the world. Or maybe your thought is, that stuff is overpriced. What does this guy think he's charging? Like, way overpriced, man. The ricochet thought about that is, oh, what if people think my stuff is overpriced? And the result of that thought is, well, maybe I better charge less. Maybe I need to charge less than even I think I'm worth, or less than I need. Or sometimes you'll watch a video, or Kickstarter video or something, or a project page, and it's like, oh, this creator really is full of himself or herself. And then but the ricochet effect, the reverb effect, the thought that then is sort of subtle and undercurrent, when you have that thought, it always will come back to us. It's like, oh, what if people think I'm full of myself? Well, I better just not show up, or I better be super humble, or even self-deprecating. All of that stuff, all of those judgments, judging other creators, like, it's poison. It's creative poison. But listen, I know it's tough. I am not immune to this myself. The reason I'm talking about this is because I need to constantly remind myself this. You know, I saw a Kickstarter project the other day that was a creator that took the most famous comic book character probably in the world and launched Kickstarter for his version of that character. And the Kickstarter was named that character. Yes, like and you know, mentioned it's a fan comic or a fan reimagining, but literally the title of the Kickstarter was the mainstream character name and a subtitle. And you know, it was very hard for me not to call that out. And I actually did post in one of my groups. I'm like, you know, you can love this character, you can want to write this character, you can, you know, be a fan of this character, but you probably shouldn't launch a Kickstarter with the name of that character and try to make a comic and sell a comic with that name for a copywritten, trademarked character, right? And so I shared that with my group, and you know, obviously that's not a best practice or everything, and it's very surprising that it even made it past the Kickstarter screening, and I would not be surprised if they soon get a cease and desist letter. But what I had to do for myself is, I felt those feelings. I acknowledged that I was feeling the desire to judge this person and this campaign. And I acknowledged that. And I didn't get down on myself for having that judgment, because I know how detrimental judging others like in that way can be. So I acknowledged I was human, but then I also had to acknowledge, hey, this is a human too. This guy is probably doing the best that he can do right now with what he knows and where he's at in his world. And I'm just going to wish him well and then get back to doing my own thing. And trust me, like, if you can go a day, then a week, then a month without judging other people, you will be shocked at how much your fear of your own judgment and your fear of other people's judgment is going to just kind of walk away. And so if you don't believe me, try it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Because the best thing that could happen is that a lot of those thoughts, those, what are people going to think? What are people going to feel? What are they going to say about me, etc. If you can get those out of your head and instead just get laser focused on doing the stuff that's really going to push the needle for you, whether that's finally completing your book, whether that's finally getting your launch into gear, whether that's finally building that audience, when you get to doing those things, when you get to launching your Kickstarters, that's when things really take off. And so I hope that helps. And I would love to, if you want to be so bold as to share one of the things that you find yourself judging others for most, I guarantee you there is some insight to some of the things you fear about what people are going to think about you in the things that you judge others the most about. All right. And so that introspective work, it goes a long way. So I hope that helps. Again, I want to encourage you, if you haven't grabbed it already, go get this Kickstarter roadmap that I put together for you at comicslaunch.com/roadmap. It has a number of great resources for you in the journey that you're about to be on, if you are able to get over that fear of judgment and launch your Kickstarters. And I can't wait to see what you launch next.